Welcome back to Gamer Spit, the show where I talk shop on the topic of gaming and hopefully give you some insight into how you can enjoy more of your time spent playing video games. Today we're discussing the top 10 ways you can have an easier time with Cuphead. This game isn't the pushover its graphics led most game journalists to assume, but it's also not nearly as difficult as it initially lets on. I'd warn you up front that my tips involve the DLC in spots, so sorry if you don't already own the delicious last course. It is a great investment though. With that, let's get into the list. Number 1. If you've seen any of my other Cuphead videos, you already know this one. It's use Jimmy's wishes if all else fails to gain extra HP. By running in quick circles on the map, Jimmy will appear and give you 3 extra hearts. You can't use this to beat stages on expert mode, but it is extremely useful for practicing final phases, getting a handful of trophies, or clearing that one boss you're struggling with on normal. Make note that you only have 3 uses of Jimmy until you've beaten the game in full, at which point they become infinite. And I think you have to beat Jimmy's stage once before you can use him, but for a number of trophies and learning purposes, the extra HP comes in very handy. Number 2. Try playing most everything with Miss Chalice. She has a double jump, 4 HP instead of 3, a dash which also parries, and an invincible roll. Simply duck and dash to use it. There are times when she isn't your best option, but they're in the minority. Examples of her negatives in my opinion mostly include the airplane stages, since her super is slower to start moving, and her EXs don't have much reach. Her single jump is also lower than the other characters, which can result in some unlucky damage, not to mention that you won't have access to the other charms, but don't underestimate her. Ask most anyone who's completed this game's trophy chase and they'll tell you she alone knocks about a point off the difficulty scale. She also makes most every pacifist run a walk in the park. Number 3. Change the mapping of your dash from triangle to the R2 button. This is a literal game changer, one which only ever bothers me when I'm confusing the directional weapon lock of R1 with the dash of R2. But since I rarely ever use weapon lock, this is small potatoes compared to the other side of the coin. Dashing with triangle usually means you have to stop firing, which is not recommended. Much of this game is an endurance test, so always doing damage is key to besting most encounters. Dash on R2 also just feels more natural, especially if you're playing with Miss Chalice, so do yourself this small favor and move that blasted dash to a more sensible place on the controller already. Number 4. Understand that most of this game's challenge is just pattern recognition. Even though some combinations really are randomly unlucky, most people only get good at this game with continued practice. It may not feel like you're getting better while constantly face planning, but you are improving in both memorization and controlling skill. Errors of frustration or exhaustion tend to mask our gains to the point that we fail to notice we're getting better. But take a break long enough to feel fresh again when playing, or go back to one of the first bosses in the game, and you'll no doubt understand that you're only getting stronger when it comes to smacking this game silly. Number 5. Use the crack shot in most places, usually with charge or roundabout as your backup weapon. Crack shot's great because it tracks while also doing more damage than the chaser. Additionally, it does a lot of damage if you hit at close range before the shot cracks into a homing projectile, and it takes out smaller enemies much more effectively than chaser. Unless you're in a section where hitting something creates lots of extra dangers, such as the final phase of Grim Matchstick, where you should absolutely be using charge, this weapon is a perfect way to mindlessly hold down fire and focus your mental energy on avoiding hazards rather than landing shots. Even if it means facing the King's DLC challenges for extra coins early on in order to afford, make sure this weapon is in your arsenal. Number 6. Don't always wait until you have 5 cards to use them. There are plenty of times when a full super saves your ass, yes, and you'll waste lots of cards when using them for EXs if you don't understand what each weapon causes an EX card to do. But not only will you usually need to hit with an EX to get A or S ranks, you'll also struggle longer through most phases than you need to without the extra damage EXs afford. They're wildly undervalued, especially in the airplane levels, such as Dr. Call or Cala Maria, where use of EXs during the latter halves of their stages make a metric ton of difference to your ease of clearing them. Number 7. Remember that bombs are an option in the plane levels, as is going small. You'll also want to use the double heart charm whenever you're flying a plane. I can't tell you how dumb I felt when I first realized that the last phase of Wally Warbles was meant to be cleared with bombs, or that Hildeberg's Sagittarius phase could be simplified by using bombs to stop all the blue stars from even appearing. The double heart charm seems bad to new players because it reduces damage, but the reduction is only 10%, while the extra health is an overall increase of nearly 70%, meaning the math stands to reason you're better off taking the damage reduction. Unless you're great with Miss Chalice's cards in the plane levels, I'd recommend Double Heart Charm to anyone hoping to have an easier time here. Lastly, going small doesn't make you invincible. It can also feel unwieldy at first, but it's 100% going to get you through certain encounters, such as the final phase of Dr. Call. Part of me wants to recommend sitting far to the left as well in the plane stages, but that's a situational piece of advice at best. Definitely one which fails when you begin playing on Expert. Number 8. Don't listen to every YouTuber. Some show you the hard way of doing things, or some less efficient ways of doing them, while others tell you only what works best for speed runs and S-rank clears, which will rarely be helpful in the average playthrough. A good example of this is people who tell you to immediately buy the smoke bomb and spread weapon, both of which I almost never used in my entire platinum or 100% DLC trophy runs. What works for me isn't what may work best for you, but I promise that players who can jump around in pixel-perfect fashion around these bosses, routinely moving hitboxes, or invisidash in and out of danger without landing in accidental damage, they're the minority of players. Odds are you need to focus on avoiding damage with a character you can see at all times, while not worrying about which direction you're firing in, and that means spread shot and the smoke bomb charm won't be your bread and butter. There are even YouTubers who overcomplicate the 9 HP trophy. So what I'm saying is, watch a few different videos on a given topic before settling. Some pros even think the twist up is a god tier weapon, but as a normal human being, you're only likely to use it in one phase of the entire game, optionally at that. So don't waste time and coins buying and doing things the hard way just because one YouTuber you rightfully respect insists there's only one way to play this game. Spoiler alert, there are many. Number 9. Try to avoid playing bosses on simple difficulty. I say this mostly because you can't play the end of the campaign if you beat every boss on simple. When I first touched this game back on the Switch, I ran into this exact problem. On one hand, it's great to experience success with simple mode if you aren't proficient in this kind of game. Simple can also help you get used to the way this game plays or familiarize you with pieces of certain boss battles, but you're not progressing the percentage of your clear by playing this way, and will ultimately have to reface each boss on normal difficulty if you want to see the end of the game. Pretty much the only reason I could see recommending simple mode is if you just want to unlock each aisle with ease so that you can buy a bunch of stuff from the shop before fighting bosses on normal. Otherwise, simple is not the friend of any trophy hunter. Number 10. Bit of a catch-all here for some smaller things, but I hope this entry eases someone's struggle. Play the mausoleums with a second player for easier clears. They're one of the only parts of the game to not get harder with a second player, so you've nothing to lose by enlisting help against the ghosts. Also, seek out the hidden coins on the map and buy everything you can from the shop. Just be careful of the DLC items in the shop if you aren't wanting to also play some of the DLC. I found this out the hard way, having collected all coins in the main game but not being able to buy everything in the shop. Since I'd bought a DLC weapon, I then had to play the King's Parry challenges for extra coins in the DLC before I could finish buying all the normal stuff and earn the platinum. Personally though, I think getting absolutely everything from the shop is the way to go, since it gives you tons of ways to play. So get all the coins you can as quickly as you can, buy stuff, then take on the bosses. It's a much better time than the alternative. There are a few other things I could mention here, such as not rushing yourself to hit King Dice's dice, that the nose of Beppy's coaster car is parryable, or that jumping straight up is the best way to avoid damage during Grimm's middle phase. But hopefully this is enough to get you playing and beating much more of Cuphead than you even thought possible. This game made me feel like a toddler first picking up a controller when I initially tried it out, but I'm now of the opinion that sticking with it will turn you into a champion as well. So go get back in the ring. And please like and subscribe, since that tells YouTube to show you more videos like this and encourages me to keep making more content for you.